I'll start off with this, just giving the idea that I brought to you, and then you can kind of go down your rabbit hole because I just know I know you thought about it.
Yeah.
So basically, listeners, the thing that I called Comic Cuts yesterday after work, and I was telling them that I think I figured out this whole MCU Kang thing. So basically, this is I'm gonna say this is our working theory because I think that you also agree to an extent. You might have slight changes, but so the theory is that he who remains lied to Loki, and basically, I believe that he who remains controls the 616, and the Council of Kangs control the Fox universe and all the other Marvel universes. And so basically, I believe that he who remains was making a bunch of these things happen because he wants to create his own multiverse. And I believe that he might have created his own multiverse to take that to defeat the Council of Kangs, maybe taking the most powerful Avengers from each time to go defeat Kang. I'm not sure, but I do believe that is that. And then I also brought up the fact that on Earth 838, which we all believe is the universe that the Council of Kangs control. Something else that we found out that I've been kind of researching is that the 838 universe is 10 times more powerful than our 616. If you take a look at the details, if you watch Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, think about this, right? In our 616 main sacred timeline, Tony and the Guardians of the Galaxy got their butts whooped on Titan by Thanos. In the 838, the Avengers killed Thanos in full armor. In the 616, Thanos took off his armor after he got the second stone. But compare it to when he fought in the 838, he had almost all of the stones and still had full armor, just showing the power level of these two universes. So I think what King Dynasty is going to show us is that the 616 is mid. That the heroes in the 616 are super weak and they have no chance of beating King at all. He's going to beat on them so bad. And so that's kind of the idea that that's kind of the rabbit hole that I've been going towards, is that He Who Remains has somehow kept the Council of Kings out of the 616. But now that He Who Remains is dead, killed by Sylvie, either one of two things can happen. Either number one, Sylvie is trying to control the timeline, and there's this device that I was researching, bro. Remember remember when Sylvie and Loki first met, she was trying to find this thing called like the opal or something like that. Remember that she was trying to find this, like, the device.
Yeah.
Apparently, this device is going to allow her to travel through time and do all of these amazing things. So what if she has that and she's like making things happen in the timeline, kind of trying to sustain everything so the Council of Kings don't enter in? Or she did not do that and got selfish and is doing her own thing. And so now the Council of Kings are able to come into the 616 and affect the universe and make certain things happen. So now, my one last thing, and we will touch on this after we go down this rabbit hole, but I just want to plant this on your mind now, Comic Cut. So just to put this in your mind, you DM me that Moon Knight is coming back. Season 2. It's rumored. And the rumor is that Kang the Conqueror Rama Tut is going to be in this film. Here's the idea that I posed to you. All right. Loki season 2 will determine whether if Rama Tut is in there or not. Because look, right? We see at the end of Ant-Man Quantumania that Victor Timely is in Ant-Man. We don't know what universe or time that is. Now, if Victor Timely is in the 616, that gives us two options, right? Either number one, that is the king of the 616, or number two, it is the king. These are the Kangs that are infiltrating the 616, which means that Sylvie failed and that the Kangs are in here, which means that we will see all of this stuff unfold in the Loki show.
So it's a lot to digest, but I will say I do.
I'm sorry.
I do think no, all good. The crazier the better. I do think that He Who Remains would be good comment. We'll get to that in a second. Thanks, Pop Cult King. Uh, I do think that he who remains is the Kang of the 616, and I think that he has, you know, been through a lot that we haven't seen. Uh, but why the reason why I think he is the Kang of the 616 is because he's the first one we saw. We saw him at the end, and he was so afraid of the other Kangs. You know, like that's what his entire purpose is as he who remains in Loki. He was terrified of the other Kangs. He tried to talk you know, Loki out of killing him. And I do think that he was, you know, like he didn't really seem to have an evil intent, you know, but he's Kang. I could be wrong for sure, but I do think he is the Kang of the 616, and he's evolved into this He Who Remains character. And he's like, I want to stay the fuck away from the other Kangs. And don't kill me. You're just gonna fuck it up. And I think that, you know, and I don't think he was lying, because I think the confirmation when they cut to that Kang statue, and that statue was 100% Kang. You know, that outfit was the Kang outfit. You know, so I do think that the Council of Kangs is trying to come into the 616 universe. You know, the Council of Kangs probably has their, you know, I think that their, you know, mission objective is to conquer. That's what Kangs like to do. A bunch of Kangs together. I can't imagine that's not what they don't want to do. The 838 piece, you know, and Thanos, you know, being, you know, in his armor and not being in his armor in the 616 makes a lot of sense. I don't think that, you know, Kevin Feige would have signed off on something like that for no reason, you know, but I do think that, you know, like I do think that the Kang Dynasty movie is, you know, what I like, and this made me think about this more, but what I've been thinking about a lot is, you know, in the comics, when they lead into Secret Wars and it's Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers and the Illuminati story, you know, there were a lot of different stories that took place in Avengers that kind of wrapped up, and then Secret Wars, you know, was like the combination of different pieces of different planets. But what's interesting to me is Kang Dynasty is going to be leading us into Secret Wars. And in Secret Wars, there are, you know, in the comics, it really was a Reed Richards versus Doctor Doom story. And also, you know, Doctor Strange, who was kind of a pawn, and, you know, spoiler alert, but, you know, the Doctor Strange, he ends up, you know, going up against Doctor Doom, realize what's going on, discovers the secret, if you will, and Doom kills Doctor Strange. So I think Doctor Strange has to be a part of it. Reed Richards has to be a part of it. Doctor Doom has to be a part of it. But at the same time, Warlock wasn't in Infinity War. So I do think there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be changed. And the Kang Dynasty story, you know, which was, you know, Kang basically comes to Earth and basically says, I'm taking over. I forget exactly, you know, why or the premise of it, but that was the story. I personally didn't like the comic. I've said it a couple times. I really can't stand Kurt Busiek's writing. I think that the story
Terrible comic. Oh my God.
Terrible. By the way, the story, like the plot, isn't bad. It's just that the dialogue and the way that Kurt Busiek writes,
he did not know the characters whatsoever.
Yeah, he could take a story like the Infinity Gauntlet story and make it trash. He is just that awful of a fucking writer. Period.
I agree.
And by the way, there was a comic writer, I think it was Mark Millar, who once called out Kurt Busiek's Avengers story, and Kurt Busiek got pissed.
He flipped out on
him? Yeah. There was like a Twitter beef. And by the way, Mark Millar is one of the best Marvel writers of all time. So, you know, if we're saying it, you might not, you know, I hope you trust us by now. But if Mark Millar is saying it, you can take his word. But my point is what, that Kang Dynasty story, I think, is going to be very different from the comic story, because we already know that the Council of Kangs versus Kang is like the Kang story going on right now. Kang is kind of running away from the Council of Kangs via He Who Remains in Loki, but then in Quantumania, Kang was thrown away by the Council of Kangs. So there's a real conflict between the Council of Kangs um, and Quantumania Kang, and He Who Remains, who I think is 616 Kang. The only thing that I think is interesting about him being the 616 Kang is, how are they going to explain that He Who Remains has been in the 616 universe this entire time, and we're just finding out about him now? So, they're going to have to explain for a lot of time with him. And this is what I think they're going to do. And this is what I thought about over the past day. I think that it's going to be the story is going to revolve a lot around Kang and the TVA and the time variance and, the Masters of the Time, the Master Timeline. And I think that for them, the Master Timeline is the 616 universe. But what if other timelines are, like spurn other universes?